Well, hello, my friends. I think we have a very important thing to talk about today. As you probably know, I'm Scott Jewett. I'm the Libertarian 2.0 candidate for governor in 2026. And in the process of running my campaign and helping other candidates, I've come across somebody that I think you really need to hear from today. Danny Eastman is helping us to make sure that our campaign is protected, but there's a lot you can learn from Danny on how you can protect yourselves, your businesses, your lives, your families. So, Danny, why don't you introduce yourself and then we'll just chat about this.
Thank you very much, Scott. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening to your followers, to your listeners. My name is Danny Eastman. I run a company called Cyber Fortified. We're based out of London in the UK. We are a global cybersecurity and reputation protection consultancy firm. We protect individuals, families, executives, organizations, high profile celebrities, musicians, you name it, athletes, all of those from digital attacks, scams, and impersonations. Our work started sort of nearly a decade ago after seeing how unprepared most people were, and sadly, how quickly their lives could unravel online. And over time, that sort of evolved into building proactive, more personalized digital safety strategies.
Yeah, you know, you were referred to me by my insurance company because I was concerned. And as you know, Danny, one of my fellow libertarian candidates, he's running for Congress here in the United States. I've been working with him, collaborating. I know him quite well. I know his family, and I think highly of him. And a few weeks ago, I got a strange email from him, and it was unusual. It was there's somebody in my church who's got a crippled child. We want to raise money to support them. If you click here, you can help us buy a gift certificate for them. And I thought about it. I said, I'm an active participant in charities like Make-A-Wish Foundation and companies that support children and our veterans. And I wrote him back and I said, I already give to organizations. I applaud your efforts, but my support is going elsewhere. And honestly, Danny, I walked away from that with a little bit of a sour opinion of him, even though it was a charity. I'm saying, why is he asking me for cash? He actually, in the email, it said, if you put up the money, I'll pay you back. And I thought, okay, he's going to be borrowing money from me to give to a child's um, charity. And so my opinion of him got degraded. And then I got an email from him a few days later. He says, I've been hacked. He goes, that email was not me. And you know what, Denny? Even though I now know that he was not the author of that original email, I can't help but have a little bit of an emotional negativity around him and around it. Maybe it's because I think it's going to happen to him again. Maybe it's because I already formed an opinion of him because of what I got. But that's what made me call you is how do we protect ourselves against these sorts of things?
A lot of the times it's about education. I would say probably every single time, education. The more we educate ourselves with the threats that we're facing, and bearing in mind these threats are fast evolving, probably faster than we can keep up, faster than developers can develop the antivirus, the anti-malware, the anti-ransomware. And that's, of course, why you have something called 0 day, by the way. And I don't want to get too technical here. But going back to your question, um, it goes back to this old saying of if something feels too good to be true, it probably is. If something doesn't feel right, it probably is. I think we've got ourselves in a big rush, Scott. And I think that's almost we've given ourselves permission to forget to trust our own instincts. We
Uh,
don't listen to ourselves enough.
right.
We're all in a big rush. And I think that's a lot of it. You know, if we stop for a second and just ask ourselves a question, okay, would this person send this message? If not, okay. If we're still not sure, now, hey, oh, by the way, it's even easier to reach people nowadays. You can just pick up the phone. So anything that doesn't sound right, or would that person really send something? And it, by the way, Scott, that was really good that you picked up on the fact that he said he would pay you back. That's common language among cyber criminals. So if they hijack your WhatsApp, if they're able to hijack, with an account takeover, uh, they attacks rely on rushing you. By the way,
Hmm.
emotionally or time pressure. They'll say, "Oh, I have an urgent favor to ask of you." Again, there's that sort of almost subtle coercive language. But again, I haven't come up with this rule myself, but let's call it the 30-second rule, right?
Okay.
If people just pause for 30 seconds, again, does this feel right? Does this feel urgent on purpose? Huge proportions of scams would fall apart immediately if we just took those 30 seconds. Because the thing is, cyber defense isn't always technical, it's behavioral as well.
Oh, that's interesting. Um, Taking 30 seconds, it stuck with me when you said that, right? To stop and think a little bit. Um, I had and tell me if this was a good use of safe practice and what you might have recommended I did differently. Because not all of us can afford to engage a cybersecurity team like your company. Um, I filed for a trademark and I got an email that looked like it came from the Patent Trademark Office. And they said, oh, you have to add some categories to your trademark. It's a little bit extra fee. I went on ChatGPT and it says, oh, yes, sometimes you have to do that. And I was just about to click on the link to pay what looked like the Patent Trademark Office here. And then I put the email address in its entirety into ChatGPT and I said, is this legitimate? And Danny, it started with uspto.gov and then went on. And ChatGPT said, "Oh no, definitely a scam." And when I emailed them back and I said, "You're not with the U.S. government, are you?" They never responded. Is it as simple as that in some cases, or are there what other steps could I have taken to figure this out before I clicked and paid to some scam artist a bunch of money for a trademark that wasn't connected to the U.S. Department of Patents and Trademarks?
So, I mean, the fact that you had already applied for something and you got that email would tell me one of two things. Obviously, you're a high profile individual yourself. So, in my professional opinion, I would say that was either dumb luck or potentially a targeted email. And so we have to kind of look at it carefully. And so, the steps that you took are exactly the steps that we would always recommend. So, I'll give you a perfect example. We had a client who had a similar situation to you, except they were dealing rather than the sort of the intellectual property government department, they were dealing with intellectual property lawyers. And a bill had been sent. And luckily, they had called the firm and said, listen, what is this extra bill? We haven't discussed this. This wasn't part. And they said, oh, wait a minute. That didn't come from us.
Oh,
So again, that 30-second, now it might come across like I'm saying everybody needs to be a skeptic. And you know what, Scott? Maybe that's exactly what I'm saying. Maybe for that first 30 seconds, be a skeptic. It's okay to be skeptical. You're not hurting anyone's feelings. You're not doing anybody any harm. Be a skeptic for the first 30 seconds. And honestly, the steps that you took and the steps that our clients took was important, because had neither of you made those steps, taken those steps, then you would be that little bit poorer because you would have paid out and you wouldn't see that money again, unfortunately.
yeah, and it doesn't cost anybody money to take that little pause, do a little research, contact the person that you think this is going to. Um, one of the things that is concerning, and you and I talked about this a little bit, is that in today's world, with AI, you can create information that looks legitimate. And in the, just 5 years ago, if I heard something on a newscast that I was skeptical about, I'd go look at the actual video of that person saying it and see if that's really what they said. Or a few days ago, there was a YouTube that said, this happened and it caused the stock market to crash. So I went and looked at the stock market and I said, well, it hasn't gone down hardly at all. So in today's world, where I can create a video of somebody doing just about everything I want, or create a press release that's completely fabricated, what do you think? Somebody like myself is running for office, and I want to base my decisions on the facts and the reality, and not on fictitious information. What should I look at when I see information coming to me? Is there a recommended way of cross-checking?
I think it's a great question. And if we think about the way the modern cybercrime is evolving by utilizing and leveraging AI, um, look, AI makes everything more believable, more personalized, and more scalable. What we can do when we look at things, there's obviously, for example, there's a whole big thing with news agencies fact checking and whatever. But actually, look, it doesn't take us long to fact check. And when we see something, I think we've got to take it. Everything these days, I think even more so, that phrase, take everything with a pinch of salt, comes to mind.
Hmm.
It's very easy for us, especially when we're on the move and we've got our smart devices and whether it's a tablet or a phone, and we're using news aggregators, or wherever we're getting our news from, and something pops up. And of course, you've got something which is perfectly legitimate, if not slightly questionable, which is something called clickbaiting. So again, a headline will make you, again, you're busy, you see that headline, you might not even click on the link, but it's enough for your mind to go into freefall.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
And so perhaps the next thing you do is impacted by that headline, which, as we know, that's the way news agencies work. They now, you've with the I think the sharp decline in paper-based newspapers have got to get you onto their websites. They've got to get you clicking onto their articles, because then they can sell advertising space. It's simple economics in that respect. So, but the danger there is how we then react. So, forgive me for sounding like we're getting to an elementary level, but the difference between reacting to something and responding is huge when it comes to something like this. So
wait,
maybe
say that again. That's
the
profound,
difference.
but I want you to explain that.
Sure. So if let's take that example I just made of, we're on the move, we're kind of busy, as I think we're busier than we've ever been, and we see one of our news aggregators might pop up and gives us a headline, and it might be a misleading headline, or just misleading enough that it panics us. We rush to do something about it, so we're reacting. A reaction, I think, for me, forget the kind of Oxford English Dictionary definition of either word. In the context of what we're speaking about, if I react, I'm not taking any time to think about what I'm doing. I think that's pretty much in line anyway with the definition.
Yeah.
If I'm responding, though, I'm taking that 30 seconds just to scrutinize what I'm seeing. Again, does it feel right? Does it feel forced? How likely is it? Just take a breath. We take a breath, it makes
Wow.
such a difference. And I think that's true of most things in life.
Well, it's a great. Once you said that, now every time I'm in a situation where I'm saying, "Is this real?" I just take a breath and I count off those 30 seconds, and I make a little bit of a hesitation in my decision making. Another thing that I think is profound about where we're at today. I don't know if you remember, because I think this was an American issue or event, but there was the early days of the radio, right? And the radio became something that was very important. And for the first time, you could hear news live and new, and it was instant. And there was a joke played on the public called the War of the Worlds. Do you remember hearing about this?
I do, yes.
Okay. And because that media was looked at as being legitimate, news-based, and very important information, people bought into the content that there were aliens landing on, I think it was downtown New York or something. The media itself gave it credibility. And my grandparents, my dad's parents were both newspaper editors in McAllen, Texas, a little tiny town. And I grew up with the understanding that reporters checked three live facts directly from the sources, didn't inject their opinions, and gave you the real information. So if I'm a Floridian or a American that's saying, where should I get information that's been vetted or is a little bit truthful? Are there news outlets or information sources? We have a website that we've used called Snope.com, where if there's a scam or something, you ask Snope, and that's where people post them. Where do you go to get news that you say that's more credible than some of our entertainment news stations now that just call themselves news?
So I'm going to have to be very careful here, Scott, with how I answer this, because I don't want to accidentally discredit any particular news agency, but I can tell you what I generally will do. So one of the reasons I use a news aggregator is the aggregator pulls in the headlines from multiple sources.
Okay.
So if I'm seeing a trend over multiple sources, I'll start to look into that, particularly when it comes to the cyber world. I need to see facts. I don't want to see things that are alarmist or sensationalist. I need to see facts. I need to see exactly what's happened, so we as a company can better understand how the cyber threats are evolving. I think news aggregators are great to address this sort of thing because, again, it gives you the opportunity to make heads and tails of what might be exaggerated, what might not be. I think the reality is, if I go back to sort of this idea of clickbaiting, perhaps accept that newspapers are vying for digital space. And so, where are people going to get their news from? You could read newspapers anywhere in the world now. So that means that demographic that the paper-based newspapers used to have suddenly might go somewhere else. So look, I think long ago news has been embellished. I think the advent of social media and the way we are drawn to social media in our everyday lives means that just encourages that. So going from trying to discern fact from fiction or embellishment from hard truth is a challenge. But again, if you use a news aggregator, it's probably the best way. Some people are going to be set in their ways and they like a particular reporting style of a certain news channel or news agency. That's absolutely fine. There's no judgment there at all. But if you are concerned, a news aggregator would be the best way to do that.
Very interesting. Well, obviously with my campaign, there's some value in protecting my reputation. But I also think that's an everyday concern of Americans and Floridians of making sure that the information that's out there about them is accurate. Talk to me a little bit about, okay, somebody put false information, a video that was AI generated, or false information, or a press release that wasn't coming from me, but was supposed to be from me. What does your organization do to say, okay, we've got a problem here? What's the process for, I don't want to say fixing it, for mitigating the risk that is caused by something that is a falsehood that the people are relying on?
Well, I mean, if we think about that, any kind of attack, let's call it a digital attack,
Okay.
they can unfold in minutes. And so
Wow.
when you think about, and you often sort of hear this in documentaries and in shows, like I'm going back to like MASH, we're going back to some golden oldies here in TV world. And they say, the first few hours are the most critical. And it's the same here as well.
Mm.
Reputational damage can take minutes. And it's very much like trust, the old saying about trust. It takes a lifetime to build, a second to destroy. It's the same thing. You have to act very fast. And, obviously, I can't tell you specific things that we've done because that would tell you who some of our clients are. But the most important thing is to find the source. Once you've found the source, you collect as much evidence as possible, and you're able to then, as we do, for example, we collect all legal evidence, everything from screenshots to the back end data. And then that sort of forms a package, as it were, to be sent to either the hosting company, the website directly, or the social media channel to request a takedown. That can be quite laborious for most people. You certainly have opportunities to report. Obviously, where we differ is we have those relationships with those hosting companies, with those social media channels. And because of that, we're able to sort of do that quickly. But for everyday people, it's about keeping an eye out. Something as simple, by the way, just for, I think we call him John Smith in the UK. I believe you call him Joe Blogs in the US. So for the Joe Blogs, setting up something as simple as a Google News alert for your name is
Oh,
pretty handy. Now, let's be honest. If you have a very common name, let's say Joe Blogs, you might be getting quite a bit there, being sent to your inbox. But again, you have to sort of balance between how likely is it. Look, the average person is not really going to be hit with deep fakes. As such, there is something, if you don't mind me using this title, but there is something called revenge porn, unfortunately, out there. Again, how that's not really AI. That was born out of something completely different, which obviously the abilities of a smartphone and the portabilities of a smartphone.
yeah.
But again, reputational damage can come from many places, and it's just about keeping. I'm going to use a very British phrase, keep your wits about you. I mean, when you talk about the phishing email that you received, that's so simple. That is such a simple email. And yet what that did reputationally is quite big. So, for example, if that candidate took more than a couple of days to reach out, that's where I start to understand where the reputational damage really hits home. And again, it's not even short-term reputational damage. It can be mid to long-term as well. So I think going back to this old idea as well of not oversharing, when we think about when Facebook kind of really kind of got to grips with its kind of audience, and something like Instagram as well, people were posting every meal they ate, for example. I remember there was an influx of photos of people's dinners.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember thinking, I don't care.
Right.
But there are obviously people that do. And so, look, it's making sure you understand, I call it cyber hygiene. And that, by the way, that stretches beyond what I'm about to say, but it's being careful what you're doing online.
Mm-hmm.
Be careful where you're sharing. Be careful where you're putting photos and what photos you're putting. Look, anyone can take a photo of somebody's face these days and do plenty with it, unfortunately. But the reality is a lower resolution photo is still going to have the same, I'm going to think about the right word here. It's going to have the same, you're going to have the same issues with a low resolution photo that you would ordinarily try to touch up in, let's say, Photoshop. as you would putting it into an AI program. AI can only do so much.
Right.
So again, being careful about the photos you put out there. Someone like yourself, Scott, obviously you're high profile. So there is not probably going to be low resolution photos of you out there. They're going to be mid to high, which unfortunately means that that's perfect fodder for cyber criminals to then use that and put it into whatever they want. Deep fake videos, which may appear on TikTok, YouTube, and wherever else. And again, voice recordings, even you and I talking today, people could extract our voices and then just do whatever they want with it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I'm not encouraging anyone, by the way. So that's not an
Right.
encouragement, ladies and gentlemen. Now, does that mean we should be scared? No, just be vigilant. It's the same when you walk through a city at night. You're not going to stand there waving wads of cash. I mean,
Right.
just a little bit of common sense. Our common sense now has to shift a little. So
Hmm.
if we hope we've already got it, let's just shift it a little and be more mindful. What would we not do in public? Don't do on the internet.
And you've been coaching me and as an advisor to my campaign, talking to me about how to protect my likeness and my the press that's out there and any cyber hacks that come into play. But now let's go forward. I'm in office. I'm the governor of the state, and my goal is to get valid information, facts and information to make decisions on. Does does your company help with that side of content validation, or is it primarily protecting the information and the likeness and the image of somebody?
So let's say you're in office and you're posting a video and it's gone only on official channels. I mean, as a starter, we would always recommend uh, people like yourselves in high positions to make sure that it's always said that the first place that anything official would be posted is going to be on those official channels. In terms of validation, we kind of do it in a slightly different way. So we might take that video and we might check to see if anybody has used that video to create a deep fake or an altered version of that video.
Okay.
So whilst we weren't involved in the exposure of the BBC doctoring a speech by current
Mhm.
President Trump,
Yeah.
the idea is still the same. So what we're doing is we're ensuring that your approved message that's gone out on your official channels is not replicated and changed in any way. So our platform will look for those across the world, not just on social media channels. We'll be looking across the entire internet, and we'll be looking for those variations. Not if that video has been cut just for, let's say, news reporting purposes, but whether there's changes in the integrity of the original file.
So is that being done through AI, or is it you searching for those videos, a human being doing it? Is it something that gets automated where you can say, here's a video clip, where else is it out there?
So this is where AI is not the enemy. And I think it's really important to let people, I'm sure most people don't quite yet think that AI is entirely the enemy. So if you imagine historically, people would need to be searching through mentions. So what we do is we use proprietary AI to double down on that search. So rather than just using or looking for mentions, we're actually looking for digital files. So we're using AI to be able to look and scan any digital file out there, because it doesn't matter how a file is uploaded, how a file is converted. It is still a digital file, even if it's not one of the more widely used formats. And so the platform is able to actually scan those digital files to see whether there's, I won't use the word corruption, but let's just say if there are, if the digital file has been altered in a way that gives off certain I'm looking for the right word here.
Patterns?
I'm going to use the word dynamics or telltale signs. When
Uh,
you alter a video and when a video is, I tell you, I've got a great example. If you think about the old school days, you go to the cinema
mhm.
and you would know when the change of reel was coming
Mhm.
because there'd be a sign for the projector. You'd also know when the change of reel happened because there was the slight skip.
Yes.
That slight imperfection, which nobody questioned really, because that was cinema of the time. If that happened in a modern day cinema that wasn't advertising as, hey, we're going to play an original 30 millimeter film of this film, um, you would question that. That shouldn't be happening. So the system works in the same way. It looks for telltale signs that something has been altered, that something is not real. There are
Mhm.
key markers within digital files. So, for example, if you take, let's say, a JPEG photo and you keep reducing its file size, but then you expand its resolution from that small file, to the naked eye, you would see the pixelation. That would
Yeah.
be pretty clear to you.
Mhm.
So the platform does the same thing, but a far more advanced level, because of course, to the human eye can only see so many things. And the human eye is not going to be able to scan over 15 million websites a day, over 7,000 back end channels every day. That's impossible. So the system is able to do that. Like the naked eye could see a pixelated photo, this platform can see where the troubles lie, where the deep fakes are, where the alterations are, where something has been injected.
That's actually amazing, Danny, and that you're using the very tool that may be used against us to protect us. You reminded me, I'm a Photoshop expert and started way back when, there wasn't digital photography hardly yet. So I learned and I was amazed early on when you could take a picture and use what's called the cloning tool and copy like the grass and copy it over the traffic sign or something like that. So I became very good at understanding how to make alterations to photographs. I was in a gallery in Florida here, and there was a photography um, display, right? And there was this huge, must have been a 40 by 60-inch print that a photographer supposedly took in Africa. And it was this big, colorful orangutan monkey walking in through the grass at a precipice with a beautiful sunset. And I asked the curator of the gallery, I said, is that an accurate photograph or was it photoshopped and layered together? And they said, no, no, this photographer never uses Photoshop. They're all authentic pictures. And you know what, Danny? I got up close and I could see that same cluster of grass duplicated a bunch of times in the image. That is going to be something that if I was wanting to fake a photograph, I'd know that someone could look for that, right? So you've got to stay ahead of this, right? You're probably
Absolutely.
constantly trying to outrun the scamsters and the fake artists out there and make sure that you're one step ahead of them.
100%. And this is the thing, like I mentioned earlier, there's something called zero-day threats, and that's going to happen. That's going to continue to happen where developers of anti-malware, antivirus, anti-ransomware software are always going to be one step behind. Um, Much like the flu vaccine, by the way. The flu vaccine is a mixture of strains. It's not necessarily the strain for that year, because you can't necessarily predict it. It's the same principle, but you get ahead by mitigating the risks. You can't eliminate, you can only mitigate. And that's why, sort of, again, going back to an earlier question, what can people do to get ahead? It, don't stick your head in the sand. If you find yourself a victim of a deep fake, you need to get ahead of it. Don't stick your head in the sand. You need to, or even if it's a phishing email, yes, it's embarrassing, but trust me, it looks far worse if you delay getting in touch with the people that are likely to have been affected.
Very, very good advice. Now, uh, I'm introducing you to some opportunities here in the political field because there's a great deal of cost and value to these types of issues. Tell me what's a Florida voter that might need your services? Are they a CEO of a company? Are they just a family member that's concerned about their reputation? Are they only companies of certain size? What type of listeners would say, you know what, I need to talk to Danny?
Generally, our clients are anywhere from small, medium to large companies. We also look after politicians like yourself. We have sports athletes. We have a couple of Oscar winners. We look after. Obviously, I can't tell you who they are, but and we've got some musicians as well. And that all sounds great. So, these are the type of people that need protection because obviously, the high profile individuals need protection because they're visible. Now, it doesn't mean that everyday people don't need protection. They absolutely do because they're targeted in bulk. Now, can we look after individuals? Yes, we can, but it's a little more complicated than that. We often look after the families of the high profile individual. That's generally how it happens.
We have a few of those here in Florida.
Right.
We
So,
have a lot of wealthy individuals, a lot of business people and politicians and famous athletes. So I would think this would be a community that really needs services like yours.
but the reality is, most of our clients, our new onboarded clients every year, have come to us after something has already happened. And the most common thing they say, we wish we'd come to you sooner.
Oh, that's profound, Danny. What a great point to end on. Don't wait till you get damaged. Don't wait till your reputation is hurt. Don't just quickly respond to things without taking the 30 seconds per your advice, but be proactive.
Absolutely. That's honestly, if you're not proactive, it means you're going to be chasing, you could be chasing shadows, you could be chasing your intel. These things are costly. These things really, mental health is not a taboo subject anymore these days. I've seen grown men cry,
Uh,
and that's really hard. It's not because they're grown men, but it's hard to watch people cry generally. But, when you see businesses fall apart, when you see people's earnings and earning potential disappear because they've been targeted. And again, this is even before deepfakes were a problem. This is even before AI was leveraged by cyber criminals. So we're talking about a very different landscape, a landscape that is moving incredibly fast. And as I said, the most common thing we hear is we wish we'd come to you sooner.
well, you do brilliant work, and you're truly helping people and companies and famous, valuable brands out there. How should somebody get a hold of you? I can put it on the screen, but should they go to your website, email you? Give us verbally how to best get a hold of you for a consideration if they need your help.
Before I do that, may I leave something for the people we don't look after? So
Absolutely, absolutely.
the Joe blogs, if I may. So I'll just leave you with some quick, short things. So number one, we've spoken about phishing emails. So please think before you click. Slow down. Take that 30 seconds to be skeptical, to scrutinize. I'm going to say something slightly controversial here. Urgency is manufactured. Okay, urgency is manufactured, and cyber criminals know that people are living very busy, stressful lives. In this respect, urgency is manufactured. There's something called multi-factor authentication, or MFA, or two-factor authentication. If put it on your phones, on your social media accounts, if you're not sure how to do that, all the major social media companies have how-to guides. When it comes to your phone, go to your local provider and ask them to show you how to secure your phone. Tighten privacy settings in terms of social media posts. Think about where you're putting things. And what I always say is treat your digital footprint like your financial credit score. Protect it proactively. Do not wait for something bad to happen first. It's not a case of if, it will happen.
That's profound, Danny. You do great work. I'm honored to have you advising me on my campaign and how to protect my image and my businesses. So I really appreciate you. Thanks for the time today. Really valuable information for the people here in Florida, my friends in Florida.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure,
You have a
Scott.
great rest of your day, my friend.
And you too.